All right. Hey guys. So apologies. Eric is unable to join us this week, but we wanted to get the party started and start sharing some rankings with you guys. So training camp is in full swing, so it's obviously time to start talking about football again. So you've got Udinese, Hercules, and DK. What team are you again?
Atalanta.
Atalanta. That's right. Man, now this makes so much sense. We agree on everything. Anyways, we're here to talk to you guys about La Liga today. It's been a minute. I think it was kind of the draft we last time got together and kind of chopped things up. A lot's happened since then. Aaron Rodgers has shown up to camp. Deshaun Watson showed up to camp. Anthony Miller got traded. Really big news happening. Anyways, what we're going to do today is go through some power ranks we did based off of the La Liga division. There's some consensus at the top and the bottom, but I'd say the middle is up for some pretty fun debate. Got a couple of rankers in there, and two of them are on the podcast with me tonight. So we'll go ahead and just kind of start chopping things up. Anyways, Fred, how are we doing?
I'm doing all right. I've got my Dankful IPA. I won my disc golf doubles league tonight. I'm already a winner. So anything else beyond that is just gravy.
You're thankful and thankful.
There you go.
I love
Damn
it.
thankful.
Indeed. Donnie, good to see you. Good to have you on.
Thanks, appreciate it. Cheers. I opted for a rye whiskey tonight from the great folks over at Willet.
Very nice. You can't see it. I've got a coffee cup with tequila and margarita mix in it. But, sometimes these are things you have to do when you're working out of hotels.
Yes.
Anyway, so we're focused on La Liga. What we did was we had DK, Fred, myself, Eric, Luigi, and it looks like Fred, did you source Rate My League for two different points in time, or?
That's right. So I sent one in earlier in the spring. I think it was probably right after our draft. And then I did it again this week just to pick up any of the trades and roster changes that have happened since then. It's not really important to talk about the early one. There are some significant changes in the rankings between the two, but if we just want to talk about where we're at today, that's fine.
I get a couple of changes, but basically just trying to at least explain the sources. So basically we took all of those independent rankings, meshed them together, said based off the average who's in first, who's in last, what's the range in terms of those, and we'll talk accordingly. So I think this is a good set for us to use because, frankly, all of us had slightly different folks, higher or lower. Fred, you have some company.
I do. Hang on 1 second. I have to take care of something. I'll be back in a minute.
No worries. So we're going to start from the bottom and move to the top. So, Donnie, we're going to have to carry things here for a second. So, pretty consensus in the bottom, I'd say. There are three teams that kind of settled into the bottom for us. Next tier is probably about three teams as well. Then there's a team that kind of stood by itself in seventh. We had five teams kind of in that 6 through 2 range that we had intermixed, and then a team that I think we all kind of agreed was the current leader in the clubhouse in La Liga. But we'll go ahead and start at the bottom. So in 12th place, with a composite ranking of 11.7, which basically meant that most everybody ranked them last, we had Granada. So DK, I'll let you go first. When you look at the roster for Granada, what kind of jumps to mind for you?
Well, one quarterback who came off of missing most of his season last year, and obviously that's going to be a challenge. If he can come back and get right back to work, he's got one good quarterback in a league where it's hard to get quarterbacks in. I don't really see a running back here that you feel great starting about, or that you feel great starting. I do believe that I was one of only one or two that did not rank this team dead last. But for me, the quarterback and the running back situation, that's going to be really hard to overcome there. I do like several of these, wide receiver 3 and 4s on this team who could make a jump, or some young guys that I like on this team. Really like Irv Smith. I was actually sharing a couple camp videos of him with some Vikings fans buddies today. I just think he's going to be a problem on the field for a lot of teams. So I like some of the receivers. I like Irv quite a bit. Joe Burrow is obviously potentially one really good option there at quarterback. He needs to get another one, and this running back squad really needs to get beefed up. Maybe he was hanging on. He had A.J. Dillon there, thinking that we weren't going to re-sign, or the Packers weren't going to re-sign their guy there. But that's pretty lean there at running back.
So again, this is if you recall around draft time, if not just before, is when Chase took his team that was aging but probably meant to be a competitor in this division, and has now torn it down to this. Completely agree with you from an assessment perspective in terms of very, one QB, interesting options at running back, but nothing really to write home about. Some solid option at tight end, and then a lot of deep youth at receiver. If I scroll down, this is what he really focused on, was DJ, Zach Evans, Breece Hall, basically trying to beef up his Devy squad to get what he's looking for. And I think he's actually got one more coming here that should get added here in the next couple of weeks. The point is beef up the picks, beef up the Devies, and give himself all of the rookies that he wanted in plenty of other leagues that we're in with Chase. He tends to do this. He goes hard after a title, somehow finds a way to blow it up into rookies, and then is able to recycle these rookies into a competitive team. So I think both Fred and I are kind of not holding out hope, but holding out expectation and reserving judgment a little bit of this team, because right now, definitely not the best team in the Liga, probably the worst team in the Liga. But we've seen a lot of situations like this where in 2 weeks, Chase will have turned this over and have a competitive team and be in the top 5 of La Liga and back in the Champions League conversation. Fred, am I way off base here?
No, not at all. The only difference, I think, in what we've seen historically with Chase is that he did it in the offseason this year. Normally, he plays to win and blows up his team after he starts 0-1 or 0-2. In this case, I think he looked at a couple of the teams in La Liga and decided that it wasn't worth it for him to try to make that competitive roster or compete this year. And in this sense, the way the league is set up, he is trying to give himself a leg up on the future. And from the point of view of rankings, I'm assuming we all looked at them in terms of the 2021 redraft status. How is this team going to produce this year in this league in this division? And in that sense, he is probably fairly easily at the bottom of the pile.
Right.
But more than likely not for long. And like you said, if he decides that he wants to change his mind again, which he does several times per season, he could turn this back into a productive roster with a lot of additional moves, but he has the parts and pieces to make them, as long as other people in the league believe in his taxi squad and his Devy players at the same level that he does.
Right. Again, all it's going to take is, again, knowing the pattern. Devonta Smith's going to make a big catch. Oh, my God, you guys see what Devonta Smith did? There's a YouTube clip. Or, hey, there's Jalen Waddle. He's the top-rated guy from Madden. Maybe it's something you can take a closer look at. Sure, I'll take Michael Thomas for him. Just that kind of stuff's going to start happening. And all of a sudden, we're going to be looking at Granada saying, okay, I guess he's going for it again. But, this is what he likes to do. This is where he gets his enjoyment out of these leagues.
He may be the league leader in pump and dump strategy.
Indeed. All right. Any additional thoughts about Granada before we move on? All right. So on to the next one. With a composite rank of 11, which was a good combination of 10s, 12s, and a couple of 11s interspersed in there, we have, drum roll please, Valencia. Checking. Yes, Valencia. So I'll go first on this one. Quarterback position is not something to write home about. Running back position, David Montgomery, I think, landed, as well as James Conner, better than others could hope. But this is not a collection of running back ones that you expect to carry you towards the title. Some youths, along with some vets at the receiver position, but again, nothing supreme that you're really super excited about. Then you've got Kmet, Gronk, Freiermuth, and Cook. This is a tight end premium league, but these aren't exactly premium tight ends except for maybe Gronk. So this is a team that looks like it's in the midst of blowing it up. Couldn't quite blow it all up last year. If it wasn't for the fact that Granada was completely unproven, this would probably be our 12th ranked team. And in fact, I believe, DK, you actually had these guys as 12th in your rankings, right?
Yeah, I think me and Eric were both put Granada ahead of this team.
Which I can't fault you on. But that being said, you still have some pieces like T. Higgins and a couple others that have produced. It's just one of those where you can. This at least has a watermark as this is bad, but here's the watermark. Granada has no watermark.
And I think I'll chime in there because when I was ranking these teams, I used a method that is kind of a little bit different from what I've done in the past. What I decided to rank on was how many studs a team has, how many starters a team has, and how much, if not starter, then depth players or bye-week players a team has. And this team for Valencia, I don't see a stud on the roster based on my criteria, and only 2 starters. In that sense, he's at the bottom of the barrel or at the bottom of the league, but he's still ahead of what Granada has put together because he has even less. So there's a little more depth here. There's a little more to work with, but he's not playing for this year in any sense based on the criteria that I used to rank these teams.
Yeah, makes sense. DK, Donnie, anything from you?
Yeah, I guess the defending why I put the other team ahead. You look at this year, he may not have a quarterback to start and get points from. Mac Jones may not play a starting snap this year. I definitely don't think he'll start the season, and unless Cam bombs, he's not going to get that chance for a little bit. I think they'll develop him there. Teddy Bridgewater, it's a toss-up. I think Denver's going to make a play to get somebody else on that squad. I think they're going to trade out a running back, and they're going to trade for a quarterback or sign somebody to get in there. So he may not have a starting quarterback there, where at least the other team has Burrow. The wide receivers crushed this team. I think if you look at the tight ends, I'll take Irv Smith, any tight end on this group. I think he's got a little more depth at tight end here, but I'll take Irv Smith from Granada's team over any tight end here. The only edge that this team has is got some names at running back. He's got Montgomery, he's got Keyshawn Vaughn, he's got James Conner. Montgomery is the only one that I really think is going to score a lot of points there. The other 2, I don't think are going to, you're going to feel confident starting them every single week. I do like Tariq Cohen actually a little bit better now that they traded Anthony Miller out, but not much. He's probably going to have to start him some weeks, but I think it's how bad wide receiver is buried from this team compared to Granada, and the fact that he might not have a quarterback to start at all at the start of the season, which made me rank this team last over Granada.
Yeah, again, I can't disagree with any of that. I think there is a argument to be made of there are some pieces here that we know are at least decent. There's a lot of unknown, but a lot of upside on Granada. But I don't think either of us want to be either of these teams. Again, I say that now, but Granada could have quarterback reinforcements coming in next year as well as his own pick. and we could be singing a completely different tune next year.
Yeah, going forward, I think I would much rather have Granada's roster than what Valencia has. Although I can't tell you what he has for like future draft picks, and he's got 2 Devies, but I don't know anything about them, so I don't know if those are on par with any of the top Devies that Granada's team has.
Yep. All right, moving on to the 10th overall team. So all the 12th place votes are off the board. They were used on Granada and Valencia. But this was a nice combination of 9th, 10th, and 11th place votes. And the 9th place team, according to our 10th place team, according to our rankings, is Atletico Madrid. So, again, another team, I feel like across the leagues that we're in with Chris, that has really taken to the rebuild process this year, but that's normally not his strength. Really has begun in earnest. Again, a Joe Burrow quarterback, which again seems to be a consistent theme for those rebuilding right now. Slightly better running back with Mostert and J-Rob, Jamar Chase, Gabriel Davis, and Hollywood Brown and AB at receiver, as well as Caden Smith, Hunter Henry. But again, tight ends not quite where others were. So definitely a step above the other two. But just the matter of kind of where things are falling, only having one quarterback and a kind of wasteland at tight end has landed this team 12th. Donnie, I'll kick it to you first. Any additional thoughts you have or anything I missed on Atletico?
No, I'd be able to look at it more when I kind of look at the next team we're going to talk about here. I echo those thoughts. There's a couple names that that you like here, but nothing that really jumps out and make you love the team. I think I had this team ranked one spot higher than where the consensus landed, so pretty much in agreement.
Okay. And my scoring system that I used, I'll explain it when we get to the next couple of teams here, because there was a tie in my score between Atletico and Valencia, but Atletico broke the tie with more players that I qualified as starters than Valencia did. He had 3 and Valencia had 2, but in this case, one of those 3 was a quarterback, and Joe Burrow makes the difference here, even though the 2 teams have the same ranking score. The real question to me is, he's basically said, he's won a bunch of money in this league, and he's performed extremely well the first 2 seasons, and then blew up his team to play for the future. I want to know why he's still rostering David Johnson, Antonio Brown, and Frank Gore, and what are these pieces doing on this roster?
So he just traded for Antonio Brown. He had Cam Akers before, but
okay.
With Cam Akers' Achilles injury, I think it was a first and DJ that he got to get Cam off his team. He's on the fence side of no running back has made it back from an Achilles injury the level that Cam Akers has. So sell him for whatever I can get, and whatever he could get was AB and David Johnson.
So this is a move to make another move later. Okay, yeah. That's fair. And losing the stud potential that Akers was, you take whatever you can get in the short term, and then make do later on. That's a fine strategy.
Yeah, again, he's either an early mover and got more than people like me are going to get, or he jumped the gun and now has to make another move with 60 cents on the dollar. So I think that's a reasonable debate there. Donnie, any other thoughts before we move on to the 9th place team?
Really on the trade, I'm really surprised. If I was an Akers owner, and I am in a couple leagues, I don't see his value going down over the course of the season. I would probably personally wait. see how a indie running back, I'm spacing his name right now, Mac.
Taylor.
What's that? No, the guy.
Hines,
Marlon Mack.
Marlon Mack.
Yeah.
I would wait and see how Mac comes back from his Achilles injury this year. And if he looks strong, start hyping up like, hey, look at medical is coming along. Marlon Mack had the Achilles injury last year and look at him this year. I don't see his value going down anymore over the course of the year. So why sell him right now, especially for a team that's not looking to compete right now? I think he probably would have gotten more value later in the season for an Akers, maybe even at the end of the season for somebody that didn't have to hold him all year.
That's a really interesting point, and it looks like Indy has 3 players that they are rehabbing from various Achilles injuries this season. And if these guys can come back, either Indy feels like they know something that other teams don't, or they have a treatment or recuperation plan that other teams haven't tried. If these guys are able to come back, make the field, and produce close to where they were in the past, that's a game changer, and that really could be something that Akers looks at, for his own rehab. I'm not going to bet on it, but something about what Indy thinks they're doing intrigues me.
Yeah, if Matt comes back and looks strong, I'll be hammering offers for Akers in pretty much every league I'm in, except for this one where I've just laid out that strategy.
Nobody's listening to this. You'll get away with it.
There's 2 other people listening, so as long as as an Akers owner who's not really going to sell him until he's out of the league because I believe in the talent, you've got 2 other owners that you might be able to get him from.
That's right.
All right, so moving on. The 9th overall team with a composite ranking of 8.7. And this is really close between 9th and 8th here. In terms of composite, it was 8.7 versus 8.6. The 9th ranked team that we have based off our composite rankings is, drumroll please, Barcelona. So everyone else is out of turn. Donnie, do you want to go first with this team?
Yeah, I had this team bumped, swapped. These last 2 teams switched around, and it really just came down to mostly running back. I hate that. I'm big on running backs. I know this league is structured a little bit differently, so I probably over-index on my traditional love of running backs in other leagues, but I kind of carry through here, and I just look at this and I go, again, you just don't feel good about any of these guys. There's Carson Wentz could be good this year. We'll see what he does in Indy. Trey Lance, if he gets a chance to start this year, but it sounds like they've already committed to Jimmy, at least for the start of the season. I don't think Jared Goff is going to be great for fantasy this year. So while it looks like he's got a lot more at quarterback, it's a lot of question marks there. Maybe that all pays off, but I kind of just gave the nod to the last team there, Atletico, just for a little bit stronger running back core.
No, I think that's completely reasonable. Let's just do a quick check. Fred, it looks like you also had Barca higher over the next team we had here.
Right. I had them in 9th place, but with the same score as the team in 10th place, which I guess is where they ended up. So you said this team was essentially tied with the team that we have ranked ahead of them, and that's where I had them as well. And my tiebreaker here was, again, players who will potentially be better, or there were more players that the 2021 redraft rankings say will perform better. Not to spoil the next team, but there were a couple of players, or at least one player, common between these teams, and I'm going to agree with what Donnie said. I put a big red X on the running back position for this team because the only player that it looks like he has that he'll be even able to put in his starting roster without laughing at is Gus Edwards. And is he a running back 2? Is he a running back 3? He's not worthy of a starting position for most teams. This team has no other choice, but he has to start him because there's literally nothing else on the roster.
What could save this team is there's a couple guys here that I kind of like as potential to go to LA. I could see either Rex Burkhead or Royce Freeman ending up getting cut in camp here. And I think that those would both be stellar backs to go and potentially smash in LA with the opportunity there. That could be his saving grace, or maybe Keyshawn Vaughn actually gets the ball. But outside of that, I mean, those are really big question marks.
Right. I feel like, and I'm looking at this optimistically, I think there are two starting quarterbacks on this roster. I think you've got a 0 running back type roster where you only need to start one. So Miami is a far from lockdown running back core, and they just brought Malcolm Brown in. I could see that potentially happening. You mentioned Gus Edwards. Royce Freeman absolutely could be somebody who pops up in cut conversations. Then Mark Ingram and Keyshawn Vaughn, I don't think are going to be forgotten parts of their respective backfields. Again, you only have to start one, but you supplement that with what he's got at receiver. DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall, Brashad Perriman, Jalen Reagor, Deebo Samuel, Michael Thomas. 5 or 6 deep at the position. Again, everyone thinks, oh, Brashad Perriman, really? You're bringing him up? Yeah, he's potentially the number 1 receiver in Detroit right now.
Everyone is.
Whatever that's worth, he's still a number 1 receiver. And the number 1 receiver is going to get enough targets to produce like a 80 reception, 1,000-yard player. Whether that happens with Perriman or not is up for whether he's able to convert those targets for what they're worth. But that said, if I told you can get a guy for 80 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns, that's probably a receiver 2 for you. So, yeah, you're all for that. So, point is, if he plays a 0 running back game well with his 2 quarterbacks, his depth at receiver, and then Noah Fant and tight end, this is a better team than I think people give it credit for.
I actually like several players on this team in terms of what they have potential to do this year. It's not going to be consistent, and it's not going to drive him into contention, but he's probably going to outproduce what we have him ranked for, at least during stretches of the season.
I think the first time we're seeing Michael Thomas, I don't know if you guys ranked before or after the Michael Thomas news ended up hitting. I know I ranked him afterwards, and I probably would have had him just slightly higher before the Michael Thomas news. I don't personally think Michael Thomas is going to play this year. I think we're about to watch the AJ Green show, need a full ankle reconstructive surgery because it just wasn't right. And if he ends up sitting most of this season and that happens, I think we're watching the AJ Green show. When he finally comes back, it'll be his age 29 season if he were to miss this season.
Yeah, that's definitely a player that he could look to move before he loses any more value. I don't know that he's going to get a ton for him, but he can get another prospect for, this is a young roster outside of Michael Thomas in general.
As an owner who just traded for Michael Thomas, I would like you very much to enjoy these middle fingers I found for you.
I just traded for him in the league too.
Did you trade for him before or after the ankle surgery announcement?
Before. I was offered my 22 first and Rashad Bateman for him. And obviously pre-ankle surgery, it's like, oh, that's a no-brainer. Of course I need to take that. So I'm fairly certain that whoever offered me that deal knew that ankle surgery was coming, so I need to go break their ankles.
The stupid thing about all of that is even as recent as like a week or two ago, everyone was saying that it looked like he was rehabbing correctly and he looked good in OTAs. He was on the field. He was making catches. He was cutting. This really blindsided the entire community. And now they're trying to go back and, retcon and say, oh, we didn't really know what was happening, and you shouldn't have listened to what we said then.
Exactly. Don't listen to what I say unless I'm right, in which case I need to do some victory laps. Okay. Anyways, moving on to the 8th ranked team. Again, close tie, not tie, but close between the 8th and 9th ranked team. The 8th ranked team, Getafe. So, Fred, I think we've done the last couple. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, and so this is another team that I had tied in rankings and score. So let me just talk about how I created these scores for teams. I basically said if a team has a player that's ranked in the top 12 at quarterback, running back, or receiver, those are studs, and those get 20 points. If a team has anyone ranked from 13 to say 36, that's a starter, and that player gets 10 points. Beyond that, I said, if players are depth in the 37 to say 50 range, these are players that you could use as bye week fillers. You could use them as spot starters here and there. Those players got 5 points. So anything else was a 0. And I looked at it purely from redraft status for 2021, and I had Getafe and Barcelona tied at 65 points. Again, the tiebreaker was, in this case, Getafe had one more player at running back who was ranked slightly higher than Barcelona. So even though they both had the same total score, he had one more player, and he broke the tie.
Yeah, I would agree. It's by the slimmest of margins, but the running back position for Getafe is definitely much stronger than for Barcelona. The wide receiver position for Barcelona is much stronger than for Getafe. But again, by the slimmest of margin, I would agree. And I think I had the same way of Getafe being in front here. And I'm one of those degenerates that keeps enjoying Kirk Cousins as a quarterback year in, year out. And, profiting is the wrong word because I'm not winning a lot, I don't think, in the leagues that I have him in. And that probably needs to be a point of coverage here. Excuse me. But
well, for this year, who would you rather have, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, or Trey Lance?
And I think that's a fair question. I would rather have Kirk Cousins. But the question is, what's the difference between Goff and Cousins?
The difference is Cousins can finish the season as a quarterback 1, and I don't think Goff can.
It would not. Again, I can see both results happening. So I think most likely to happen, agree, Cousins jumps ahead. But I would not have to squint very hard to say, wow, the Lions are absolutely terrible this year. Goff throws 500 passes and therefore outperforms Kirk Cousins. Again, I wouldn't have to squint hard. I'd have to squint, but I wouldn't have to squint hard.
Okay. What do you think, Donnie?
I think this team could go a lot of directions. I think there's a nice, stable, decent floor with the quarterbacks that they have. They're not going to blow the roof off the doors, but they're going to be fine. I don't see Cousins being necessarily quarterback 1, but I think in these types of leagues, there's some good stability there with the 2 guys that they got. I think Carson is going to be fine unless he gets hurt again, right? And there's a decent probability of that. There's enough there with running back. I think Travis Etienne is going to be a sure starter there. So he'll have some, and he's got a bunch of other options and backups there, and could go a lot of ways. A big Jerick McKinnick fan. I hope he finally gets somewhere. I like the receivers, and I like the tight ends. So this is a good team.
It's a good team. Yeah.
All right. So moving on back and moving on up. I'll go ahead and call this team our consensus 7th ranked team because There's definitely a gap between everyone we have below them and this pick, and I'd say definitely a gap for everyone above them and this pick. And the reason I say there's a gap because every team above this is my line of demarcation. Every team above this, I think, has a legitimate shot of winning La Liga. I think this team is probably a little bit too far away for one of two reasons, but everyone above this could win the league. And I'm sorry to say this, considering he just got married this last offseason, had half the league there, but because I was not invited, and I don't think any of the three of us were, we have to go ahead and put Real Madrid as the 7th-ranked team here.
The really interesting thing about the ranking for this team is that of the 7 rankings we have, 6 of them had him in exactly this position, which is a little bit ridiculous, isn't it? For middle of the pack, and you look at the rate my league, and it completely matches what you just said. He's in a tier by himself. He's not one of the shitty teams. He's not one of the good teams. He's just kind of there.
And I mean, if you look at his roster, we talk about how we don't love Jared Goff, but Tua and Jordan Love could be something this year. We don't know if they will or not, but there's option there. Running back, again, Melvin Gordon. I think we're all expecting to go the way of the dodo bird, but Najee Harris is there, so that compensates for it. Then you look at receiver: T. Higgins, T.Y. Hilton, DK Metcalf. These are guys who, and Will Fuller, if he can recover from the fact he got injured on day 1 of camp. Again, these are guys you can build around.
What are the odds that happens, though, to Will Fuller?
I've stopped trying to set odds when it comes to players, but maybe I shouldn't be playing fantasy football if that's my attitude. Who knows? But point is, this team is very much the first 7 starters. Not bad. Beyond that, not a huge fan, and especially without that premium quarterback. So I think that's why we ended up having this team as a middle-of-the-road team. But, again, I don't think any of us would be shocked if they ended up in Europa, let alone Champions League conversation.
Yeah, I had him in the 3rd tier of teams, but he was the last team in that tier. And, you look at his roster, he has potential for players to move up from where they're at and become something significant. He's got Tua, he's got Najee Harris, he's got T. Higgins. I'm not convinced that his tight ends are really going to move up from where they're at. But somebody even like Will Fuller, I have him ranked just barely as just as a starter kind of player. But when he's on the field, he produces at the stud level. He may only do that for 5 or 6 games, but those games are amazing. So yeah, there's potential here, and he's got a team that can move up or down depending on what these few players do this season.
Mm-hmm. Donnie, anything to add?
I think I was premature with using the word good on Getafe. I think Getafe was almost good. I think this is the first team that I go, it's a good team. And I think Fred nailed it. Like the starters, you look at starters, go, that's a pretty good team. And then 1 or 2 of them get hurt and you go, it's a pretty bad team.
Not a good team, yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that he has Randall Cobb, and that changes everything.
He has 2 Randall Cobbs, actually. He's got old Randall Cobb and new Randall Cobb.
Fantastic. He has both Randall Cobbs.
I'm sorry, DK. I did this wrong. Since we're at the halfway point here, I'm going to go ahead and pause. Do you need a few minutes to do your Green Bay victory lap here?
No, I think it's a little bit early for that. I think when I first made that comment, it was before the media reaction to Aaron Rodgers' press conference, like acting like he went all scorched earth, which I didn't think he said anything all that bad personally. I think he just aired out some some things that was bugging him and said they kind of figured it out. We're going to see how it goes this year and go from there. I think the thing that stands out to me the most in the situation that's really not being talked about is how much that front office must either, it's probably a combination of both, either absolutely love what they're seeing on a Jordan, or they just can't get over that ego of they spent a first round pick on him, and no matter what Aaron Rodgers is playing, like they're not going to trade him, and that contingency or not contingency, that succession plan stays in place at the end of this season. But I think there's a lot to be said for what they think of Jordan. It'd be really interesting to see if we get another even close to what last season was out of Rodgers. I'd say it puts the front office in a bad position, but I really don't think so. You could trade Jordan Love for, I would assume, an early second, if not back at late first, after the couple years of development that they've already put into him. So I think they're in a good spot. I think it went about as well for Packers fans as you could hope for based on all the swirl that you heard in the offseason. It's close to a win-win for the two parties as I think you could get.
I'll admit that I was getting quite nervous with my Aaron Rodgers shares over the past week or so. And now I'm just sporting half a chub, 24/7.
So here's the thing that drives me the most nuts about this. There should be a consistent plan from the front office to the coach. The best teams in the league have a consistent plan, front office to the coach, to the coordinators, of how this all works. Based off his contract, there was no good way to get out of Aaron Rodgers this year. Even though he wanted to be traded, would have been, a $40 million cap hit? Like, there was no good way to get out of Aaron Rodgers this year. So why did you take a first-round quarterback last year? I understand Favre needed 2 years. Rodgers needed 2 years. Both of those were highly regarded quarterbacks coming out of college that fell in the draft for a number of reasons. Jordan Love was never that. So it's kind of like, okay, are you trying to project something that isn't there onto this guy? That's fine. But then, hey, you take A.J. Dillon in the second round. The idea being, we don't want to pay Aaron Jones. Doesn't make sense. We don't want to pay that guy. We want to use that on other things. But then you don't. So what are you doing?
I think the plan was to move on at the end of the season. And what people leave out of that conversation is what Aaron Rodgers looked like the 2 years prior to them picking Jordan Love. What we saw last year out of Rodgers was not the Rodgers the 2 years before that.
Completely agree. Complete peace. No argument whatsoever there. But if you can't get off of Aaron Rodgers' contract, why do you draft his heir apparent? Was the plan to have him sit there on a $30 million contract backing up Jordan Love if things completely went sideways? If Rodgers had, say, a mediocre season last year, would they have cut him and taken the $40 million hit? Will they have Aaron Rodgers, arguably the best quarterback in their team's history, sitting on the bench this year because he had a bad year last year? Like, I just don't understand the logic, and I don't understand the pick in the first place. Because they also traded up. They gave up draft capital to go up and get Jordan Love again. I spent too much time talking
they've
about
gotten out of him. I mean, he's been on the wait. Never mind.
Look what they got out of him. Did you see Aaron Rodgers last year?
That may be the best use of their draft capital ever.
I would spend a first round pick on what Aaron Rodgers gave us last year every year. It's logged off.
Mike's so pissed he had to leave.
See ya.
Because you're not wrong.
Sorry, I clicked on the wrong back button here as I tried to set up for the next pick here. So apologies. But hey, yeah, I guess that's the thing. If you use your first round pick to motivate Aaron Rodgers and your second round pick to motivate Aaron Jones, and you got those performances out of those, then yeah, that makes sense.
You spend a first round pick to piss them off, light the world on fire, and then you spend a 6th round pick to make him happy again. Get Randall Cobb back.
Because what's a 6th-round pick anyway? I mean, it's just garbage.
And it's fun to just light all draft capital on fire.
Yeah, why not?
Anyways, so like I said, we're moving into what I'll call the competitor section of the draft here. I'd say every one of these remaining picks had a selection that put them in the Champions League or above, which, as far as I'm concerned, means they are a competitor. The composite ranks for the next 4, I'd say, are pretty darn close. There's only 1.5 points that separate the next 4 in terms of composite ranks. But that said, the 6th ranked team at this point is Real Zaragoza. And again, to DK, your point, this is a good team. Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers. If Watson doesn't play, having Tyrod Taylor is going to be a productive player. Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Chase Claypool, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel. A bunch of old tight ends, but again, that's going to be productive. He has the ability to put up the points you need to win week in, week out. Tight end is not where you want it to be, but he has the points kind of across the board to be in the game. There's probably some, I'll call it overestimation on my side on DeAndre Swift and Joe Mixon, but that's just my opinion on things. But that said, this team, if things break his direction, I think could win La Liga.
It would take a lot of things to go his way for this to happen, but at the same time, this is the first team of the 7 that we've ranked so far that in my ranking system has multiple studs. He's got Justin Herbert, he's got Aaron Rodgers, he's got DK Metcalf. All of these guys are top players at their position, and he's got Tyrod Taylor, which also gives him the ability to play bye weeks at his superflex position. He's not deep. The players he has on the rest of his roster really need to step up. He needs a Van Jefferson or a Justin Jackson or somebody else to be his 8th and consistent starter in this league format. But he has a roster that is going to put up consistent points every week. He's not going to be top of the division more than likely, but he's certainly not going to be in the bottom of the division. The unfortunate thing is, to me, this roster looks like one of those stuck in the middle teams that can't decide what its identity is.
Fair enough. Donnie, break the tie. What are you thinking? Is this a competitor or is this a thanks for playing?
I like this team as much as you do, Mike. Me and you are the highest rank in this team at 4th overall. I think, quarterback's real strong. Running backs love Swift and Mixon. I think Mixon is going to be an absolute beast this year. Couple studs in the wide receiver core. The only position I really don't love is the tight ends. He's got Brevin Jordan, Jimmy Graham, and that Happy Gilmore's first caddy there, Zach Ertz. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures out of training camp. He's full bleach blonde. He looks just like the Happy Gilmore's first caddy. It's hilarious.
Nice.
The thing that actually kind of I laughed a little bit looking at this team is I see he's still holding on to Bryce Love and Darius Geis, and I just imagine rolling into last season like a little bit of swagger, looking at the Washington running back room that he owned, and it just cratered. So I feel bad for that. He's still holding on hope. There's still a chance. There's still a chance for Darius Geis. But I'm actually kind of surprised to see him even in my fantasy league system at this point.
So Geis is an interesting hold at this point because if memory serves, he got cleared of everything about a month ago. So I don't know if he's in a training camp, if he's in Washington's training camp, or what's going on there. But I think he's in a position that he could make a team and You know, be one of those guys that you hear from someplace like, hey, how did Darius Geis get on Baltimore?
Well, he got cleared of the first thing. He didn't get cleared of like that old lady down at LSU, though.
Okay, fair enough. But
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's going to be invited to a camp, at least early on. If a team has a couple of injuries or things go poorly, they may bring him on later on, or at least bring him in for a tryout. But he's the kind of guy who I look at, similar to the Deshaun Watson damaged goods. Nobody wants to really stick their neck out for him at this moment.
We say all that, and he signs in LA tomorrow and just smashes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, the Rams took him? Okay, fine. He's an RB2.
we're so fickle with these things sometimes. All right, moving on to the next team. As mentioned, the margin between these teams is quite small. And this is probably actually the largest of those margins, to go from 5.4 to 4.6 with this next team. But a team that, again, I think is always in that conversation, and showed up in 3 of the 7 choices at this position. There's another team that showed up that was pretty close, but I think was just ahead of them. But the 5th ranked team at this point was the one, the only, Espanyol. So, Fred, I think it's probably your turn to go.
Okay. So I had him ranked. Let's see. So who was our last one? Is Zaragoza? I had Espanyol ranked 4th overall, and we've got him in 5th place. So I was slightly ahead of the rest of the average here, and let me just look here. In the 3rd tier of scoring teams in my system, he was at the top of the list, and I put him there because he's got 3 solid studs. He's got Josh Allen, he's got AJ Brown, he's got TJ Hawkinson. Guys who are solid at their position, and I was more critical at tight end than I was at quarterback, running back, or receiver. I only assigned stud status to the top 6 tight ends for my redraft rankings, because beyond the 6th tight end, I don't think anyone is happy with anyone they're starting. You're just putting someone out there and hoping that player gets a touchdown that week. Hawkinson makes the list, in my opinion, of stud tight ends, and I think he's going to smash this season. He's probably going to lead the Lions in targets and all receiving categories, because there's not anyone else there who's capable of doing what he can do. AJ Brown is an absolute beast at receiver, and Josh Allen may compete for the top quarterback in the league in terms of fantasy scoring. After that, he's got Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, guys who either have been or could be or should be or running back 1, competitors, and also David Montgomery, who people aren't respecting, but who quietly was running back 5 last year or something along that line. Nobody believes he can do it again, but he's done it before.
Yeah.
So this is a team that has potential. This is a team, he has 2 starting quarterbacks right now. He may have 3 if Drew Lock is given the job in Denver. He's got not necessarily depth at receiver, but he's got players who are going to produce and put up points and be on the field. They're starters for their team. They're going to get opportunity. They're going to get targets. this is a team that can make some noise, especially if a few things go very well or better than expected for them.
Mm-hmm. No, that pretty well covers it. All right, moving on to the fourth ranked team. As mentioned, it was pretty darn close. This team got ranked as well as second by Eric, who is not here to defend his ranking. I was the next highest at third, but then I think pretty much everyone else said that this is the fifth place team. So I probably have some explaining to do here. Real Betis and the 17 owners of Real Betis. So
it's a conglomerate, really.
Truly. So we've got DJ and Kyler. We've got Dalvin Cook, CEH, Raheem Mostert, Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton, Robbie Anderson, Mike Williams, Mark Andrews. Again, we were saying the last couple of teams, the first time we said these are good teams or these are teams that can compete. If I rolled out on a weekly basis, Kyler, DJ, CEH, Cook, Evans, Sutton, and Andrews. That's, I think, 7, right? We have to start 8. So let's go Robbie Anderson with that. That's a team I could see in the Champions League. Depending on injury luck, that's a team that could be competing for the title. So that's my vision on this. I think things fall apart quickly in terms of depth, which is something we've said the entire time.
It's almost impossible to produce a team with depth in a 16-team equivalent league. I mean, that can't really be a knock against anyone at this point.
That's fair. We have very, very exacting standards. But Donnie, what are your thoughts?
I don't completely disagree with your ranking or your thoughts. I think really it hinges upon Daniel Jones or potentially Taylor Heineke taking that job there. But it really depends on Daniel Jones. Does he trend a little more towards Eli or a little bit further away towards like Jameis Winston? Like you could go whichever way he goes there, I think will be the difference between this being a more consensus spot, 5th, 6th, 7th in this division here, or closer to where you have him in that upper tier. It's really going to depend on Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a team that has Kyler Murray, Dalvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton, assuming he comes back from injury, he's got solid, almost studs, in my opinion, at Mark Andrews and Robert Tonyan. It really, really hinges on Daniel Jones. If he gets better than expected production from him, this is going to be a team that makes noise. If he gets expected production from Daniel Jones or worse, then he really doesn't have a chance at all.
All right. We'll keep it going here. Third. We're into our top 3. So one could say that this is the end of the third tier, that there's a 1-team tier for number 1, a 1-team tier for number 2, and then a 3 or 4-team tier for number 3. There are some who could say that, but we're not those guys. I think we're going to say that there are a top 5 just outside of number 1. And the next team to be part of that top 5, Deportivo Alves. DK, I think you got this one.
Yeah, solid squad here. Like the quarterbacks, I think they're solid. Real solid top or 2 guys to start there. You'd like to see a little bit of depth. There's some bye week stuff there, but that's tough to come by. So really good quarterbacks to start. Running backs, absolutely love them. I think Chris Carson's going to smash. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, you're good there. Plenty to play with at the wide receiver position. I had high hopes for Devin Funchess. I really liked what I had seen from him in the offseason, his workouts, some of the talk about him, his body size. With Cobb coming in, I think he might be a cut candidate. That's the only downside with him. I think it really put him and EQ on the bubble. I know we're talking about bottom of the wide receivers here, just a guy that kind of stood out that haven't seen on too many rosters here. But there's some guys like you still got Alan Lazard, who I like. Mike Williams, I think, could have a good year. But obviously the weakest of his spots here, and then plenty to play with at the tight end position. So all around pretty solid. I probably like the running backs and quarterback group the most on this team, though.
So the interesting thing to me about Deportivo is that he, you said he's either at the top of the tier or right near the top of the tier of the next next down from the top, but nobody ranked him higher than third overall, and just about half of the teams, or just about half of the rankers, had him there. So he was he had 3/3, he had 3/4, and where was the last one? I can't read. It was it looks like 6th overall. So I think, Mike, you were the lowest on him. Why did you have him there?
So my biggest issue is, for everything that makes him a incredible looking team, if you look at the top half of his roster: Justin Herbert, Ryan Tannehill, Chris Carson, Mike Davis, Christian McCaffrey. I see those as my first 5 starters out of the gate. I'm thinking, I am in the running.
Yep.
I got to start at least a receiver and as a tight end. Am I in the running if I'm starting Kenny Golladay and Zach Ertz?
I mean, you also have Robert Woods and Will Fuller for the weeks that they're available, and Tyler Lockett. This is a team that I mentioned it's hard to have depth in this format. He does. He doesn't have a great tight end option, but what is a great tight end option? I mean, there's so few of them. You're just hoping to get the guy who scores a touchdown that particular week if you don't have one of the top 4, top 6. So you can almost ignore that, that problem for most teams. He has the problem I see he has is he has 2 starting stud quarterbacks, but he only has 2 quarterbacks on the entire roster. That's going to hurt him at least twice a season, right? So when he has to deal with bye weeks of these 2 guys, he only has 1 quarterback starter, and then he has to play depth and hope for somebody shows out or produces better than they're expected for that particular week.
It's like Animal House, where you got Kevin Bacon sitting there yelling, "All is well, all is well." No, not all is well, not all of it.
Okay, and that's fair. In terms of just straight up who should score points this season, I had him ranked higher. But in terms of what it looks like as a holistic look at the roster, you may be more right than I am.
All right, we're down to our top 2: Hercules and Sevilla. Sevilla and Hercules. Number 2 overall rank, Sevilla. Take a look. As I've said the last couple, I'm going to say it again because I do believe it. I would not be surprised in the least. This team has, again, all of the firepower you need to give Fred a run for his money. If I was Fred, I would have the games I had against Sevilla circled on my calendar, because those are the games I need my boys to win. I need to inspire them, and I need to make sure they're on top of their game. So let's break down the potential lineup here. Deshaun Watson with either Cam Newton or Kirk Cousins as QB2. Then you've got Christian McCaffrey with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and then Chris Carson. Like, come on. Devontae Adams as your receiver with Robert Woods as an option, and then Darren Waller. Like, that's a top 8 that is going to score with the best in the league. I think, folks, and again, not to jump ahead, probably put Fred number one because of depth. But if you look at that 8-player top to bottom, there's maybe 2 or 3 other teams in the entire UEFA League that can match that.
Exactly. And this is, by my standards, he's got 5 studs out of the 8 starters that he needs to put on a field every week. And he could have realistically 2 more with Chris Carson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins, I've said it earlier, he's a top 15, top 12 quarterback. It really just depends on what Minnesota requires for their offense to run. If they're going to be run heavy and their defense is going to do the work, then Cousins has less of a job and less of a need to throw the ball. But he could very well be in that top 15, top 12, top 8 quarterback in fantasy scoring. And if that happens, then this is a team that is going to just crush this season.
Yep. Donnie, you've been too quiet. Do you need to pour in the bourbon?
I'm looking at this team, and I'm thinking with a little bit of luck at quarterback and some good team management, this is going to be a really strong team. There's too much depth, I think, at running back versus where there's some holes. If it were me, I would probably be looking to cash in on somebody that still maybe loves some James Robinson and is liking what he's hearing out of that coaching staff, and bolster some depth at wide receiver and tight end. I don't think you're going to be able to do much at quarterback. It's just too hard in this league. So you really just have to hope for the best there. You have to hope that Deshaun plays. You have to hope that Cam hangs out of the job. And then you're in a really good spot if either of those things happen for you. But Cam
Newton's a complete wild card in this roster. If he starts, he's the Cam Newton of the first 6 weeks of 2020. Oh my God! This is going to be a just stupidly good team.
But then likewise, if Devontae Adams or Darren Waller gets hurt, you've got some major holes. I don't trust. I mean, Woods is good, but also I think he's got some injury history too. So you don't feel good about only having Woods as your backup if a caliber player like Devontae goes down. I would definitely bolster some wide receiver and tight end depth with what you already have at running back depth for sure. But yeah, we're talking about how good this team is, and if the quarterback stuff doesn't go his way, you're really bummed out. If you're Max, if Cam Newton loses the job 3-4 weeks into their rookie, Swaggy McGee over there, and Deshaun Watson. I mean, I cannot believe he's not on the exempt list right now. The accusations against him are just unspeakable, and somehow he's still out there. He's on a field saying he doesn't want to play for them and that he won't play for them. But I mean, if those things happen, then oof. And then you're talking maybe sell some of these running back pieces and look to load back up next year.
The only reason he's not on the exempt list is because the league does not have to put him on the exempt list in July. If it comes to week 1 and nothing has changed, I think they will finally make their move, just because they've been forced to. They're trying to let everything play out as long as they possibly can. If it goes away, if there's settlements, if he gets traded, those are potential reasons that he won't get put on this exempt list. But I think those are becoming shorter and shorter odds every week.
All right, boys. It's almost 11:30. It's past my bedtime, so we're going to get the best team. We're going to make it quick because nobody really wants to talk about Fred's team, right?
Nobody wants to.
No. Lamar, Aaron Rodgers, Nick Chubb. Speaking of the Chubb he's got, Derrick Henry, Mike Evans, Breek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Noah Fant, Logan Thomas, Robert Tonyan. He's got the most depth of anybody at the position. and just as good as starters.
So what are you saying?
That you're a team in the league.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I got very lucky. The stupidest thing is that if I hadn't made a trade with Mike, my team would have who's the kid on Dallas?
CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I would have CeeDee Lamb instead of Juju Smith-Schuster, and then it would just be even more ridiculous. But yeah, I've been very lucky in a couple of the moves that I've made, and here and there. But this is a team that I assume will be competing all year long as Lamar has legs and Aaron Rodgers shows up to play and Nick Chubb isn't hurt and Derrick Henry does what he's supposed to do.
It's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, it's a lot of ifs. That's fair.
Did you have a single bad thing happen to this team in the offseason? I mean, like, the worst thing that happened is Lamar Jackson has COVID right now. Like, geez, man. Everything went your way. Aaron Rodgers showed up. Chase Edmonds didn't get competition. Let's see what else here. Not really a ton of movie. I mean, Darnell Mooney. I mean, I guess I don't think the Anthony Miller thing even has much to do with Darnell Mooney, but you could say there's less target competition there.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Tunyon, he got his quarterback back. Logan Thomas just signed a 3-year deal. You got Adam Troutman too, and every Saints receiver is dying or suspended. Like, literally everything has broke this team's way so far.
So I did have James Robinson. And you mentioned him earlier as a guy who was falling in value, and I was fortunate enough to be able to trade him for Noah Fant. People complained about it at the time, saying I might have traded him too soon or gave up too much at the time, but I don't think it looks bad now.
No.
Yeah, that was about it. I mean, I had Gabriel Davis and essentially traded him one up for Darnell Mooney. So yeah, I'm just waiting for the shoe to fall and every single one of these guys to get COVID and be out for the year.
All right. So here you go. This is what it looks like. The composite lists. Everyone put Fred number 1. Sevilla 2. Deportivo or Alves 3. But as you can see, the gap between Alves down to Zaragoza is not massive. Good by himself. He's at the bottom of the league. All right. It's over an hour. You did some good work there. Let's go ahead and kind of share some final thoughts here. Donnie, anything after talking for La Liga for 75 minutes that you feel like you want to share and call out about this division?
No. I think there's some really hefty competition here at the top. I think it's very clearly Fred's and Sevilla's league to lose. I think they're very clearly standing above everybody else. Sevilla with a little bit of luck to be in Fred Chielles's tier. Fred already got his luck. He doesn't need any more.
It's a long season. Plenty of things can and will happen that I haven't prepared for. And, Derrick Henry coming off a 2,000-yard season. No one has ever performed well after a 2,000-yard season. So, he's going to be out after week 2, right? Because that's the way this works. I was wanting to do this league first just because when I looked at them, I thought it was the most chalk of the 4 divisions in UEFA, and I think our rankings pretty much confirm that. going forward, the other three divisions are going to have a lot more to talk about, and a lot more disagreement between where teams fall. So I look forward to doing those over the next couple of weeks and watching training camp play out and see how everything shakes out going forward into September.
Makes sense. And again, I know we talked about a lot of teams that I would say could compete for number one. Obviously, it seems like Fred has the depth other teams don't, but things break the right way. Wouldn't shock me if any of those top six teams win this division. So hopefully we didn't bore you too much. Hopefully next time we'll have Eric and some of the rest of our stalwarts here. But thanks for joining the three of us. We enjoyed talking to you. We enjoyed going through this, and hopefully you enjoyed it. You learned something, got a positive experience from it. But from all three of us to all of you, good night and good luck.
Good night and good luck.